What's up, everybody? The SEC makes history, sending a record 7 teams to the Sweet 16. But which team has the best shot to win it all? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We'll recap all the magic from the weekend on the men's side of college basketball. We'll also give you a quick update on the women's side of things. We'll get you a SEC baseball weekend roundup and some SEC football news later in the show. That will be in the final segment. But we got to start first with the men and what happened over the weekend. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, we start off with the SEC, a nice representation heading to the Sweet 16. If you remember, 14 teams from the conference punched their ticket, and the SEC will send 7 of those teams to the Sweet 16, the most by any conference ever. They tied the record for most by a conference with 6 yesterday evening, and then Ole Miss did what a lot of people thought was impossible, knocked off Iowa State last night, and 7 SEC teams headed to the Sweet 16. The previous record was set by the ACC in 2016, where they had 6. And really the story is all the top 3 seeds in the SEC still alive and dancing, while 6-seed Ole Miss and 10-seed Arkansas, kind of more of the Cinderellas here. It is one thing to say you were the best conference and have a great regular season like the SEC did, but it is another to back it up and have this many teams get this far. Could we get an all-SEC Final Four? More on that in a bit. But first, how did we get here? Let's dive into it. We got to start with the Arkansas Razorbacks, man. How about Arkansas at St. John's? A very entertaining game on Saturday afternoon. Big Z fouled out before the 10-minute mark. They called 44 fouls, but it was John Calipari beating Rick Pitino 75-66, and the Razorbacks punched their ticket to the Sweet 16. Billy Richmond scored 18 points. Carter Knox did a little bit of everything. St. John's could not hit a shot down the stretch. Arkansas played some great defense all game long. They held the Red Storm to 28% shooting, 9% from 3. Cal said after the game, they missed a lot of shots. If they made more shots, they probably beat us. But I'm so proud of these kids, how they play and fight and persevere. They threw us in the coffin. They just forgot the nails. We pushed it open, and we came out. So having to deal with all this adversity that Calipari has had, he has said, this is as rewarding of a season as he can remember. And things could get interesting for the Razorbacks. Their leading scorer and rebounder, Adu Thiero, could be closer to getting to come back. And it's just crazy when you think Arkansas started SEC play 0-5, but they locked in, finished 8-5 in SEC play. And look who Cal's beaten now in the tournament. Bill Self and Rick Pitino so far on this journey. Jay Bilas saying on Saturday, you think about what Cal has done and gone through this year. Loses Boogie Flan 2 months ago. Then a couple weeks ago, loses Adu Thiero, his leading scorer. Absolutely unreal, and congrats to Arkansas. Next up, Arkansas will fly to San Francisco to take on Texas Tech. Won't be easy, but you really want to count out the Razorbacks at this point? They might be getting better as the postseason rolls along. So Cal left Kentucky because, he won like one tournament game in the last 5 years. So Kentucky, what are you going to do? Well, Kentucky, on Saturday, they had to watch Calipari win and make it to a Sweet 16, something he had not done at Kentucky in several years. Well, Mark Pope, pressure was on you, my friend. And Kentucky defeats Illinois 84-75 to punch their tickets. Wildcats started the second half on fire, hit 15 of their 19 shots, took a 70-54 lead with 9 minutes to go, but Illinois would not go away quietly. Cut it to 6 points, but could not get any closer. Kobe Brea leading the Wildcats with 23 points. Otega Owe, he had 15, and welcome back Lamont Butler. He had 14 points. And this is the first time since 2019 that Kentucky makes it to the Sweet 16. For Mark Pope, man, getting a big approval rating, big check mark from Big Blue Nation out there in his year year one. Kentucky becomes the first team to ever make the Sweet 16 that returned 0 points from the previous season. Remember, they had to rebuild this entire roster. At least, somebody brought up, well, what about Arkansas? Well, they had Trevon Brazile at least, but Kentucky brought back basically no one. And really, you want to talk about best situation for everybody all around? Think about this chain reaction. Calipari leaves, Kentucky goes to Arkansas. Mark Pope leaves BYU, goes to Kentucky. BYU goes to the NBA and hires Kevin Young. All three, Arkansas, Kentucky, and BYU, are in the Sweet 16. So the rare occurrence where major moves kind of worked out for all parties involved. I think everybody's happier right now with those moves. All right, another team who punched their ticket. How about Florida going to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2017? The number 1 seed Gators had all they could handle with 8 seed UConn. Florida trailed most of the second half, but they rallied for a 77-75 win, ending UConn's quest for a three-peat. The back-to-back reigning national champs go down to the Florida Gators. Florida came into this game averaging 85 points a game, number 3 offense in the nation, but UConn's defense got to them. This thing was tied at 31 at halftime, and Florida did not take a second-half lead until just under 3 minutes to go. Elijah Martin had 14 points. Walter Clayton Jr., he had 15, including 3 monster three-pointers, and Will Richard had 15 points. Clayton's biggest shot came with just over a minute to go to put the Gators up by 6. Gators committed 12 turnovers. They will face 4-seed Maryland coming up in the Sweet 16. How about Auburn? They battled a tough one against Creighton on Saturday. They trailed 37-35 at halftime, but they outscored them 47-33 in the second half, went on to win 82-70. Creighton was just shooting lights out from three-point range in the first half. They shot over 51% in the first half. But in the second half, Auburn, they turned on their defense and turned on their offense. Chad Baker-Mazara, he scored 12 early second half points, clamped down defensively. Auburn put together a 20-4 run. Denver Jones basically iced the win with a big and one bucket late in the game. And Auburn, Janai Broom, I mean, he was uncharacteristically off in this one. Was held to just 8 points, 12 rebounds on 4 of 13 shooting. Baker-Mazara and Dylan Cardwell were both battling injuries in this one. Tahad Pettiford, he was fantastic. Led all scorers with 23 points, including 16 in the second half. But with the win, Auburn goes to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2019. That was the last time the Tigers went to the Final Four. They will face Michigan with a trip to the Elite Eight on the line. Now, Chad Baker-Mazara, like we said, left the game with what appeared to be a hip injury. Bruce Pearl saying after the game, probably got a pretty good bruise. Hopefully that's all that is. So certainly we'll keep an eye on that one. How about Tennessee? The first time in Tennessee basketball history, the Vols have made it to 3 straight trips to the Sweet 16. Number 2 seed Tennessee outlasting 7 seed UCLA Saturday night, 67-58. Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler leading the way. Lanier is a game-high scorer with 20 points, 6 of 14 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3. And Ziegler, he had 15 points on 4 of 9 shooting from the field. Lanier brought his season three-point total to 120. That passes Chris Lofton's previous record of 118 during the 07-08 season. Ball shot 50% from three-point land. They won the rebounding battle. And like we said, Lanier making those 4 three-pointers, incredible. He said after the game, it's a blessing to be in my position. And Chris Lofton was actually on hand to watch Lanier break the record. But how about the matchup next? Tennessee and Kentucky. They've played each other twice this year. Wildcats won both of them. Of course, beating a team 3 times in the same year is tough, but Kentucky will hope that they can do that. In the 2 matchups this year, Kentucky won 78-73 in Knoxville and 75-64 in Lexington. Going to be a good one, man. Tennessee made it to the Elite Eight last year before falling to Purdue. Kentucky is first time in the Sweet 16 since 2019. Tennessee expected to be a slight favorite, but that will be a fun one to watch. How about over at Alabama? Nate Oates and the Tide knocked off St. Mary's 80-66 to advance to the Sweet 16. 6 guys scored in double figures for Bama. Leading the way was Chris Youngblood, who finished with 13 points. Bama, Grant Nelson was questionable coming into this tournament. He appeared to get healthier at 12 points, 8 rebounds. Bama led 42-29 at the half. And Crimson Tide back in the Sweet 16 for the third consecutive year under Nate Oates. They will take on the BYU Cougars next weekend. Teams are two of the best offensive teams in the country, so it should be a very entertaining one. And last but not least, how about Ole Miss? Last night, punching their ticket, beating Iowa State. The Rebels held a 40-29 halftime lead, and Chris Beard's squad kept their foot on the gas pedal. Sean Padula knocked down several threes. Ole Miss as a team outstanding at the free throw line. Ole Miss shot above 50% for much of this game. Their offense was just clicking in this one. And Ole Miss's first Sweet 16 trip since 2001, their lone trip to the Sweet 16. They went on to lose to Arizona that year. Raheem Lockhart was the leader on that team, coached by Rod Barnes. But now Chris Beard bringing special things to Oxford as Ole Miss beats Iowa State 91-78. Unbelievable. All right, there was one bad from the weekend. Texas A&M, they fall to Michigan, a massive second half push by Michigan. A&M was up 39-35 at halftime, but Michigan goes on to beat the Aggies 91-79. After halftime, the Aggie defense could not find an answer for Michigan's interior game. Michigan shot 51% from the floor in the second half. Aggies finished just 40% shooting, just 21% from three. Pharrell Payne led the Aggies, tied for the game high mark in scoring with 26 points. Wade Taylor had 14, but he was just 4 of 15 from the field, 1 of 8 from three. Michigan shot 10 more free throws than A&M, and they made them 29 of 36 at the line. So Buzz Williams' team comes up short. But look, as great as 8 would have been, we'll take 7. 7 SEC teams punching their tickets to the Sweet 16. So as we take a look at it, and full disclosure, we're recording while some of these other games have not finished yet. So as of this recording, Ole Miss will play the winner of that Michigan State-New Mexico game. Duke going to play the winner of the Oregon-Arizona game. But we know Auburn will play Michigan. We know Florida will play Maryland. We know Arkansas will play Texas Tech. We know BYU will play Alabama. We know Tennessee and Kentucky are going to play each other. Houston will play Purdue. And then again, Ole Miss getting the winner of that New Mexico-Michigan State game. So, look, who's got the best chance to win it? I mean, look, Alabama probably has the toughest path if we think that Duke is going to advance. Like, if that's going to be an Elite Eight matchup and Alabama's got to get past Duke, that one will be tough. But you got to like Auburn's chances on their side. I mean, no offense to Ole Miss, but just think Auburn is a better team. And I like Florida's chances. I think Florida should beat Maryland. And then even if Texas Tech beats Arkansas, I think Florida should still beat Texas Tech. And the winner of that Kentucky-Tennessee game, they may have a tough one against Houston, but maybe Purdue does you a favor. Maybe Purdue pulls off the upset of Houston. So that one will be certainly an interesting one to watch. But there you have it, man. It is fantastic to see a record of 7 SEC teams punching their ticket to the big Sweet 16 in the big dance. And we'll have more on college basketball throughout this week. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. More to come right after this. But first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy and Daylight Savings Time. Look, it snuck up on all of us again. If you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in around a golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy giving you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. And, of course, we've been staying up late watching all this tournament action. 5 Hour Energy will help you keep up throughout the day. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one, grab a 5 Hour Energy at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. We'll have more football conversation as the week rolls on, but we're talking a lot on the NCAA tournament and basketball front. And some breaking news that came out yesterday. Amidst all of the madness going on, we had Texas officially firing Rodney Terry, their basketball coach, and making a pretty big splash, making a pretty big hire, and hiring reportedly Sean Miller, hired as the Texas Longhorns' next men's basketball coach. Miller is a 4-time coach of the year, won 8 regular season titles in his time at Xavier and at Arizona. He's been coaching at a high level for 20 years, has made the tournament 13 times, 8 trips to the Sweet 16, 4 trips to the Elite 8, once at Xavier and 3 times at Arizona. Of course, he was the subject of that 2017 NCAA basketball corruption scandal with illegally paying athletes. Oh my goodness. He was fired in 2021 as that investigation was completed, forcing him to vacate 50 wins on his coaching record. Of course, I always think that's the dumbest thing. Vacate those wins. They don't count. Oh, really? We all watched them happen. Also, it's legal now. You can pay players. Yay. So Sean Miller, not such a despicable human being as the NCAA tried to make him out to be. Look, I'm not defending Sean Miller. I'm just defending all coaches that were busted for quote unquote cheating. Something that was illegal 5 years ago is fair game now. Everybody pay whoever you want. NIL deals for everyone. But for now, paying players is legal. Bill Self is still at Kansas. Will Wade just took the NC State job, and Sean Miller is now the coach at Texas. And the name that was initially receiving the most buzz was Sean Miller. Remember, he beat Texas just a week ago in the first 4. And according to Jeff Goodman, Texas AD Chris Del Conte vetted Sean Miller 2 years ago before Rodney Terry helped lead that team to the Elite 8 run. Remember, they fired Chris Beard mid-season. Rodney Terry took over, led him to the Elite 8, and they were like, oh, well, we were going to hire Sean Miller at that time. Well, they couldn't because you can't fire Rodney Terry as the interim and go, oh, I know you just took the team to the Elite 8. So they made him the main coach or, remove the interim tag, and it just didn't work out. But John Rothstein of CBS Sports saying one of the first to break the news of Rodney Terry's firing, that before Chris Del Conte's decision on Rodney Terry, the Longhorns were in communication with Sean Miller's rep, basically saying, all right, we will hire you if we fire Rodney Terry. We need a confirmation that you will come here. And Cedric Golden, the Austin American-Statesman, was the first to report that Sean Miller will be the replacement for Terry. But Terry's buyout was a relatively significant expenditure. There were names of several NBA coaches that were circulating, but Miller reportedly had a relatively small buyout on his end, and so they ended up paying the buyout to Rodney Terry to move on. But Miller, known as a tough, hard-nosed head coach, focuses on the details, has a high-level coaching ability offensively. One of his former players, Brandon Cole, said he's a coach that you want to run through a brick wall for, and a coach that will in turn run through a brick wall for his guys. He garners the ultimate respect, and he gives the ultimate respect. So a big-time hire there for the University of Texas. And again, they dismissed Rodney Terry after nearly 3 seasons in charge, took over when Chris Beard was suspended and then ultimately fired. But Texas did scrape their way into the NCAA tournament this year, albeit it was in the first 4. But tournament run was enough to, back in 2022, was enough for Terry to get promoted to the permanent coach. But look, he recruited Wally Brown, 5-star prospect Trey Johnson, who's likely to be a lottery pick in this year's draft. But the decision to move on from Rodney Terry means Texas will pay a $5.4 million buyout as part of the 5-year deal he signed after that Elite 8 run. Terry finishes his run at Texas 62-37 overall, 27-27 in conference play. Texas Sean Miller will be tasked with taking over a resource-rich program where big success has been hard to come by or hard to find over the last couple of decades. Rick Barnes kind of fizzled out there. He had some great runs there early in his career. But Texas has not been to the Final Four since 2003 and has lost on the first weekend of the tournament 13 times since then. That Elite 8 trip in 2023 was just the 4th time Texas had advanced to the Sweet 16 since that 2003 team led by TJ Ford that went on to fall to the national champion Syracuse. But Sean Miller, 487 and 196 overall. Guy wins 71% of his games coached. He is pretty damn good. Now the SEC gets tougher. I mean, it's another big time head coach. No offense to Rodney Terry, but Sean Miller's a big time elite coach. And now you bring him to Texas and you go, oh, here's a bunch of money for NIL. Go hit the transfer portal. Go recruit well. Like, does anybody think Sean Miller's just going to be a disaster at Texas? Does anybody think he might be successful there? Now, I don't know if he'll win a national championship, but can he go take Texas on a deep tournament run? Absolutely. So the SEC gets tougher, man. When you talk about Nate Oates, Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, Mark Pope, John Calipari, and now you add Sean Miller to the mix, just makes it even tougher. Hey, South Carolina and LSU, look at you guys. You're the only two who missed the tournament this year. You may want to, start turning your stuff around. All right, quick shout out on the women's side of things. South Carolina beat Indiana as Dawn Staley's crew heads to their 11th straight Sweet 16. Gamecock women's basketball advanced to their 15th Sweet 16 in school history, the 12th under Dawn Staley. So before Dawn got there, they had only been to 3 Sweet 16s in their history. With Dawn Staley there, she's brought them to 12. So pretty darn impressive. Also, shout out to Ole Miss. They knock off 4-seed Baylor, and the Ole Miss Rebels head to their second Sweet 16 since 2007. Tennessee, they punched their ticket beating Ohio State. So quite a first season for Kim Caldwell in Knoxville. Unfortunately, Kenny Brooks and Georgia Amore, their run came to an end as Kentucky fell at home to Kansas State in overtime, 80-79. Still to go today, we have 1 seed Texas against Illinois, 9 seed Mississippi State against number 1 seed USC. Then we got 3 seed Oklahoma against Iowa, 3 seed LSU against Florida State, 5 seed Alabama versus 4 seed Maryland. So the SEC on the women's side of things with 3 tickets punched could get 5 more, as many as 5 more today. So we'll certainly update you on that tomorrow. And a quick SEC baseball weekend recap. Georgia sweeps Florida. So Georgia's 5-1 in the SEC. They outscored them on the weekend 40-13. Good Lord, Georgia. Auburn takes 2 out of 3 against Kentucky. Auburn off to a good start at 4-2. Tennessee lost the opener to Alabama, but won the next 2 to take the series. The Vols are 5-1 in the SEC play, looking like the number 1 team. A&M, they get swept by Vanderbilt. The former preseason number 1 team is now 0-6 in SEC play. And a good 4-2 start for Vandy. Oklahoma, they took 2 out of 3 against Mississippi State. So OU is 4-2. That's good for them. Texas, they take 2 out of 3 at home against number 2 LSU. LSU won the Friday night game, but the Horns bounced back to take the next 2. LSU swept Mizzou last week. Texas swept Mississippi State. So Texas now 5-1 in the SEC. LSU is 4-2. Arkansas completed the sweep of South Carolina, the number 3 Razorbacks. They're now 5-1. And Ole Miss completed the sweep of Mizzou. They improved to 4-2 overall. Mizzou winless on the season. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets should not be stressful. That's where GameTime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. GameTime Picks, the curation process makes it easier to find the best value for tickets to sporting events, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is. If you check the GameTime app, there are amazing deals on there all the time. Some huge matchups coming up. They got their lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. And with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Go download the GameTime app now, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Get $20 off your purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Before we call it a show, we did have a couple of football tidbits to get to, so let's dive right into that as we start to wrap things up. There's a lot of teams out on the practice field for spring ball, and how about at LSU? Brian Kelly bringing up that running back John Emery announced on social media that the NCAA granted him a 7th year of eligibility. So he wants to come back and play running back. Well, when he announced that, he didn't necessarily say, I'll be back at LSU, but many people assume that. Well, Brian Kelly, meeting with reporters on Saturday, said, quote, we haven't talked to John about it. It was the first that we heard about it. We love John, but sometimes, things happen and we don't know where they came from. We will be supportive in any way we can, but we're set where we are in terms of the running back position. We love John, and we'll be here and support him. If he's given that 7th year, he's certainly a young man that could help someone in the Power 4. So, look, some people kind of take that as insensitive on Brian Kelly's part. I kind of look at it as they got Caden Durham, who was just a true freshman last year and finished 10th in the SEC in rushing. That's their workhorse. Caleb Jackson is another guy who's been there, who just brought in Harlem Berry, a highly touted recruit. This is the day and age of like NIL. Like in normal years, I think you go, yeah, John, come on back, join the running back room. But I think Brian Kelly kind of looks at it and goes, I got to keep Caden Durham happy. I just brought in Harlem Berry. I got to keep him happy. I can't have a guy just coming back into the mix and going, hey, I'm back. The NCAA gave me a magical 7th year. So I kind of get it. I think he says the right thing. Like, look, if John wants to go play somewhere else, we'll absolutely help vet the process and find a school that's a great fit for him and all that kind of stuff. It just ain't going to happen here. It is an incredible story, though, for Emory, sustaining all those season-ending injuries he's had. Came into LSU in 2019. He played with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Pretty incredible that he is still playing college football. All right, another SEC football news. We did mention Georgia suspended football players Nitro Tuggle and Marcus Easley on Thursday following separate occasions of reckless driving. Well, Easley was involved in reckless driving, but he hadn't been arrested. Well, he was on Friday. Easley was arrested Friday afternoon at 4:30 and was released on a $1,000 bond, charged with reckless driving and reckless conduct. According to the crash report, he was driving in a reckless regard and lost control of his vehicle, which careened into a power box before hitting another vehicle parked in a driveway. The force of the crash sent the vehicle easily hit into another vehicle in the driveway, while his car struck the front of the garage door and the building. So pretty serious stuff there going on at Georgia. And if you missed it Friday's show, we talked all about what's going on there with crazy driving in Athens, Georgia. Why can't Kirby Smart get a hold of all this? How about Texas A&M? They went hard this offseason looking for wide receiver help from Marcel Reed. And one of their big gets was Texas Tech wide receiver Micah Hudson, a former big-time recruit. They were hoping to bring him in, and man, this kid's going to be awesome. Well, shortly after his commitment, rumors started to circle about his status with the program. And on Wednesday, Mike Elko confirmed Hudson is no longer with the Texas A&M program as they start up spring practice. Billy Lucci of Texags tweeted out, not that it was in any way a question outside of message boards and social media, but Mike Elko confirmed that former Tech wide receiver Micah Hudson is not with the A&M program. Hudson is a former 5-star prospect, was the number 12 overall recruit in the class of 2024. He was the number 10 overall player in this in the winter transfer portal cycle, number 5 among just wide receivers. Texas A&M did also land Kevin Concepcion from NC State, so he's a stud as well. But some rumors that perhaps Micah Hudson may be looking to go back to Texas Tech. Maybe he regretted his decision to leave, but it sounds like he will not be suiting up for Texas A&M anytime soon. Over at University of Texas, Longhorns are expected to hire former Chicago Bears quarterbacks coach Kerry Joseph, according to reports. He was the Bears quarterback coach last year after spending 4 years working with the Seattle Seahawks. So interesting name there to come in and help coach, I guess, Arch Manning, right? Over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer mentioned a couple of injuries as they get their spring practice started up. Beamer joked, I just walked out of a staff meeting and I had the injury report. It's going to bring it down here and forgot it. Well, there's 4 Gamecocks who will not be able to go this spring. Tight end Michael Smith, defensive lineman Caleb Williams, offensive lineman Ryan Brubaker, and offensive lineman Damola Ajudan will all be out this spring. But other than that, Shane Beamer says they're in pretty good shape, and fans will get their opportunities to see his team at the spring game coming up on Friday April 18th. I like that South Carolina's doing it on a Friday night. Friday Night Lights in the spring. What's better than that? All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. To be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness, find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Come back and see us.